Hey y'all, welcome to the channel. Today we're checking out top 10 greatest British rock bands.
Rock and roll was born in the States, but it was perfected in Britain. Welcome to Watch Mojo UK, and today we'll be counting down our picks for the top 10 greatest British rock bands.
Great. T-Rex is British?
Before we begin, we publish new
T-Rex
content
is
every
British?
day, so be sure to subscribe to
I
our
didn't know
channel
that.
and ring the bell to get notified about our
Okay.
latest videos.
I'm about to learn
For this
something
list,
here.
we take a look at those British rock bands
Dire
that helped
Straits is
define
British?
and change the genre from the 60s to this day.
Look out! I didn't know. What? Is that the Kinks?
Number 10, The Kinks.
Okay. Yeah, I knew they were British. Okay.
One of the greatest bands of their age, the Kinks are to be credited with influencing pretty much everything that came after them, and even a few of their contemporaries.
They were around for a
Pete
while.
Townsend of The Who, a band that rose to prominence around the same time as the Kinks, claims that Ray Davies' work has been a major influence from the very beginning, while others credit the Kinks with pioneering the rock concept album. They took part in the musical British invasion of the United States, but soon were banned from performing due to the Davies brothers' constant fighting.
Millions of people swarming like flies round Waterloo Underground.
I always forget about the Kinks, and it's crazy to think that they were around in the 60s and they did You Really Got Me, such an iconic 60s song, and yet they had hits in the 80s, didn't they? Give the People What They Want in 1981. 1983, they had an album. Yeah. How many bands existed in the 60s and the 80s and were still making hits? That's crazy. Radiohead, yes.
Number 9, Radiohead.
Yes. I'm surprised they're number 9. They should be higher up there.
Widely regarded by both critics and the public as one of the finest bands of the 90s and 2000s, Radiohead have recorded a number of landmark albums and tracks and show no sign of stopping. Years after their debut, Radiohead can still lay claim to the title as one of the most important alternative rock bands in the world. Shooting to fame in 1992 thanks to Creep, the debut single from their first album Pablo Honey, the band has proved time and again to have many more aces up their sleeves, from OK Computer to their latest releases.
Yeah, Radiohead. In my book, they're higher on this list. I remember the first time I heard Creep. At the time, I sort of thought of them as another grunge band. But over the years, they broke out of that, and it's like they've created a whole new genre. It's sort of like progressive rock, but without the noodly guitar stuff, without jamming a bunch of notes together. It's more of this, almost like rock jazz. Oasis.
Number
Okay.
8, Oasis. One of the leading champions of Britpop, Oasis were an extremely successful band in the 90s, poised by some, although largely the band themselves, to be rivals and successors to the Beatles. It wasn't all talk either. Their first album, Definitely Maybe, became the fastest selling debut album in the UK, and is often said to be the greatest achievement of Britpop, while What's the Story Morning Glory and its roster of singles were a phenomenon worldwide. The notorious infighting between brothers Noel and Liam Gallagher ultimately ended the band, but not their popularity, which endures to this day.
Yeah, personally, Oasis, I love some of their songs, but it's hard to get past how derivative they are from the Beatles. And they also seem like maybe they're not the kindest people, maybe? I never met one. But I would be intimidated to meet Liam Gallagher. I think it might be scary. But they've got some great songs. I can't deny those songs. Even if they are ripped off from Beatles songs, they're good songs. They know who to rip off from. Zeppelin.
Number 7, Deep Purple.
Oh, the Deep Purple. I thought it was Zeppelin. Damn.
Among the pioneers of hard rock and heavy metal, and 1/3 of the unholy trinity that also included Led Zeppelin and Black Sabbath, Deep Purple are one of the greatest rock acts in history. Their signature Smoke on the Water is a regular contender as the first song everybody learns to play on guitar.
Right.
If that doesn't say something about their impact on music worldwide, we don't know what else will. They achieved widespread success with their 1970 album Deep Purple in Rock, but subsequently went through numerous lineup changes since.
Yeah, Deep Purple. The only song of theirs that I know is Smoke on the Water, and that is because it's just so easy to play, and you hear people playing it all the time at a guitar store. But you know, the main thing, I didn't know Deep Purple was British.
From Soho down to Brighton,
The Who.
Number 6, The Who. The originators of the rock opera and one of the most revered live acts in rock and roll history, The Who have been one of the most beloved bands to come out of Britain in the 20th century. From the face of the mod movement to guitar and drum destroying synth dabbling hard rockers, The Who set out to create something grand from the get-go, and they very often succeeded. One of the tightest rock quartets anybody had ever heard, many of their classic songs are still played today.
Yeah, The Who. What can you say about The Who? I just never really got into them. I've nothing against them, other than Pete Townshend's pedophilia. I guess I just never got into the songs. But I respect them. Pink Floyd.
Number 5, Pink Floyd. Popularity and genius don't always go hand in hand. Pink Floyd are one of the most highly acclaimed bands in music history, while also being among the genre's most successful. The band was at the forefront of the psychedelic scene, and later of progressive rock, bringing in and popularizing innovations in musical composition, tackling complex lyrical themes, and offering theatrical live performances. Both with Sid Barrett as frontman and later with the legendary Waters-Gilmour partnership, Floyd recorded a number of amazing albums, The Dark Side of the Moon and The Wall ranking among the best-selling albums of all time.
Oh, Pink Floyd. I feel like, for me, they're probably my number 3. Beatles, Radiohead, Pink Floyd. Dark Side of the Moon instills so many emotions. Many times I've listened to the album all the way through, and it's an emotional roller coaster. I feel fear, I feel joy, I feel sadness. It rocks my world in a way that no other album does. It's brilliantly done. Something that I really like about Pink Floyd too is that the vocals, Roger and David, I call them by their first names, their voices are so similar that I kind of forget who's singing which song, and it sounds like either one could sing any song, and it kind of gives it a life of its own in a way. It's like it's not a human being singing. It's like these spirits or demons are singing these songs. Look at that face. That's the face of a demon. Anyway, I love Pink Floyd. Queen.
Number 4, Queen. Featuring one of the greatest voices in rock and roll, or any other genre of popular music, Queen are a mainstay of every best bands list, British or otherwise.
Yeah.
With a career spanning decades and genres, their popularity and success is certainly well deserved.
Amazing song.
Founded in 1970 by Brian May and Roger Taylor, with Freddie Mercury suggesting the name and John Deacon being drafted into the fold, Queen achieved massive international fame with the release of Sheer Heart Attack and A Night at the Opera, and by the early 80s, were the biggest arena rock band in the world.
Queen. They might be my number 3 in front of Pink Floyd, actually. Freddie Mercury's voice, what can you say? Brian May's guitar tone is like nothing else. It's like violins, an orchestra. Freddie Mercury's vocals, like a choir of angels. Love Queen. One of the best. One of the absolute greatest. Oh, Rolling Stones, of course.
Number 3, the Rolling Stones.
They had to show up on this list eventually. My favorite Rolling Stones
song.
song.
Of rock and roll, the Rolling Stones were as influential as the Beatles and continue to be one of the most revered bands in the history of music. Inspired by blues and early rock and roll, in the early 60s they become an icon of the countercultural revolution and were at the forefront of the musical invasion of the United States, while their albums from the late 60s to the early 70s are considered among the best rock records ever produced and the band's own golden age.
Classic songs, super bluesy. I can't say that I really ever dove deep into the Rolling Stones, but I do love the story about the album Exile on Main Street. All of their equipment got stolen. They were on thick drugs at the time. It was just a wild recording. And they're still going. They're still around. That's nutty. They could retire at any time, but they love doing it. Good for them. Or maybe they've been through a bunch of divorces, I don't know. There's Zeppelin.
Number 2, Led Zeppelin.
They might be my number 3 now. Number 2. Oh,
They're one
John
of the greatest
Bonham.
bands to ever grace a stage, and laid the foundations of much of the heavy music that came after them. Without
Yeah.
them, hard rock and metal as we know them wouldn't even exist. But Led Zeppelin's influence spreads to all modern music, and even to music business and the way music is made. Their distaste for singles meant they conceived all their output as albums, and their live shows helped develop arena rock, while making them the second best-selling band in the US, behind the Beatles.
Led Zeppelin. Yeah, I gotta rethink my list. For me, Beatles number 1, Led Zeppelin number 2, Queen number 3, Pink Floyd number 4, particularly John Bonham. I'm a drummer myself, and John Bonham his parts are so fun to play. I love Ringo. Ringo's a really smart drummer and he plays really great, perfect parts for the song, but there's something about John Bonham's parts that feel better to my body when I play them. It's like he's a drummer's drummer, whereas Ringo was more of an everyman's drummer. Also, John Bonham was, even if they're playing a song that's in 2, he's playing in 3. So if they're going do do cha do 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 cha, he's subdividing in triplets. He's thinking and you can tell by the way that his snare on 2 and 4 is about as far back on the beat as you can while still being considered 2 and 4, and it gives it this like laid back feel. I mean, in the pocket. Wonderful. Excellent. I know his son, by the way, Jason Bonham. I've worked with him. Very, very nice guy.
Before we unveil our top pick, here are a few honourable mentions.
Def Leppard. Yeah, Def Leppard. I was never a huge fan. I appreciate their singles, but I definitely forgot they were British. They seem so American to me. But they're not. They are British. They're drinking tea, not coffee. Stone Roses. Just started getting into them. Yeah, I literally just heard of the Stone Roses a few days ago, watching a video about British rock bands, and I'd never heard of them before. And here they are on this list. I can't believe I never came across them or heard of them. What world am I living in? There's bands that I don't know about. Janice.
Number 1, the Beatles.
The best, the greatest ever.
The long and the short of it is popular music can be easily divided into 2 periods, before and after the Beatles. And once they came, especially from the moment they started experimenting with more complex musical compositions in albums like Revolver, things were never the same. From clean-cut pop band that would have teenage girls scream every time they stepped on stage, to the mind-expanding, genre-bending, envelope-pushing band that abruptly stopped touring and completely overhauled their mop-topped image,
Yes.
John, Paul, George and Ringo did it all, and did it first. Do you agree with our picks? Check out these other great clips
Mostly.
from WatchMojo UK.
What can you say about my boys? The greatest. Of course they're number 1. They're number 1 by far. And to think that they made such huge advances in popular music in such a short amount of time. They just re-released the Red album and the Blue album, and there's remixes of some of their earliest songs. So like there's songs from their first and second album on there that they've been able to remix. Songs that were originally recorded on a 3-track tape machine or a 4-track tape machine, and with AI that was developed by Peter Jackson and his team for the Get Back film, they're able to make multi-track recordings of these old recordings so they can isolate just the kick drum or just the snare drum, just the hi-hat, just the bass guitar, and they can affect those things like they would a modern recording. And it sounds awesome. If you've not checked it out, it's amazing because you're experiencing these early songs without that old recording blanket over it. Some of the songs sound like they were recorded this morning. It's truly amazing what they've been able to do. And it's reinvigorated my excitement for them. I don't want to sit here and talk about the Beatles all day because that's not what this is about. Paul and Ringo, I'm sure you're watching. I just want to say thank you for all your great work. Anyway, really great video. Thank y'all for recommending. Thank y'all for watching it with me, and I'll see you next time. Later.